Come on, Hannah, do you want to go for a ride?
Everywhere I go, I see his face.
Kipper.
Everywhere I go, I see his face.
Let's listen to some music, Hannah.
When it's time to party, people party hard.
Oh. Here it is. The video where we're going to talk about everything. I don't even know how long this is going to be. It's probably going to be a pretty extensively long one. I did my Penguins fan reaction last Wednesday, which, the Penguins lost 6 games to the New York Islanders. And now we have to look at what's next for the franchise because, it sucks now that we're not playing, but, it'll be another season. I'm still upset. More so than I've been in the past couple of years because I didn't think the Penguins were contenders in 2019 or 2020. I did think they were contenders in 2018. That was kind of a different thing because that was, we were coming off of back-to-back cups. This year, I thought the Penguins at least had something. I sound like an idiot saying this now, but I expected them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals at least. This team looked magical in the regular season. They won the East Division. That's the first time the Penguins have won their division since 2013 or 2014, where the Penguins made the Eastern Conference Finals as well. I believe that was the same year, but the Jeff Carter coming over, he did tremendous things. Kasperi Kapanen had a great first year. Everything seemed to work for the Penguins. Injuries happened, but heading into this playoff series, the Penguins looked pretty damn good on paper and, in the regular season leading up to it. And I hate to do this, and I never do this. I really don't. But I'm doing it this year, and I'm blaming this loss on one person, and that's Tristan Jarry. He knows it, and I'm sorry. But it's not just on him, but I would say a good 85% of this playoff series it was on Tristan Jarry after Game 5, where he passed the puck to the Islanders and let Josh Bailey score that double overtime goal. I knew we were not going to win this series. After Game 1, I knew that Tristan Jarry may not, I didn't think he was, a playoff starting goaltender. I still don't think he is. The Penguins are going to keep him. I guarantee he'll start opening night. And I know the Penguins have had, their hardships with goaltenders in the past. Fleury struggled. Murray has struggled before. But, of course, they've rebounded, and they are both Stanley Cup champions. Jarry's not that. This was Tristan Jarry's first playoff series ever. I do not count Montreal. He played one game in the qualifying round against Montreal. He played the last game, and he lost it. This was his first real playoff series, and he was terrible in it. And, I hope he can do better, but I really don't have faith in him. I'm sorry. And in the bottom left here, I have a very colorful board today. I got new markers, and I'm very, happy to use them. This is a very colorful board. It's not going to be a very colorful episode. It's going to be very, depressing. Not depressing, but it's going to suck because the Penguins, thought they had something this year, but they didn't. In the bottom left, I have what the 3 things that I thought eliminated the Penguins were. 1, the Islanders' style of play. I thought the Islanders were the worst team that the Penguins could have drew in the first round, and they did, and they lost to them. Even though they beat them in the regular season series, 6-2, 6-2-0 was their record in the regular season series. Their defensive style of play and their, underrated, under-the-radar players, Josh Bailey, Anthony Beauvillier. Matt Barzal had 0 goals against the Penguins, and we still lost to him. They still won. And, that just shows that they're not offensively, they're not an offensive juggernaut, but they have a bunch of players that can score just goals out of the blue, Leo Komarov, could score a goal if you wanted to. Kyle Palmieri, they added a lot of guys that are under the radar that could score. And when they keep games 1-0, 2-1, then all they need is 1 to gain that momentum, and then their goaltender too, Ilya Sorokin, Semyon Varlamov he's done with the Islanders in my opinion. Sorokin has taken his job, and he was 4-0 against the Penguins. 4-0. I think he had a 960 save percentage, something higher than that. He was incredible. The Penguins, I think, had 40 shots on him at least 2-3 games. What else are you going to do? And then on top of that, the other thing I had, they shut down Crosby, Gensel, Malkin even a little bit. Rust. It was mostly that top line with Gensel, Crosby, Rust. And you guys know this. I mean, you guys watched the series. But Gensel had 0 goals. He was a -6 in the series. That's the worst by any Penguins. I looked through the stats. The second, worst plus minus was like a -3. Gensel had a terrible series, and he's owned up to it. Crosby was 9th on the Penguins in scoring in the playoffs. You need to be better, man. Like, I know it's tough. Pelican Pulock, man, such a good defensive pairing. They shut down Crosby, Gensel, and Rust, and it worked. And that's all it, like, as much as Jeff Carter was good, as much as Kasperi Kapanen scored a couple goals there, like, it wasn't enough. It sounds so simple, but you got to score more goals against the New York Islanders. Game 3, the game that Brandon Tanev scored that, game winner. What was the final score of that game? 5-4. That's how you beat the Islanders, man. Score a bunch of goals. And I know Semyon Varlamov was in that night, and a bunch of different circumstances. And I know me sitting here, never played an NHL game in my entire life, being like, score more goals. It's simple, but it's tough. And, Crosby, again, as I mentioned, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, 9th on the Penguins in playoff scoring. On the board, though, I do have the playoff point scorers. I did not put up the regular season stuff because I kind of did that, It's what you play for. You play for the playoffs. This is what matters. Like, I don't care. I mean, it's not that I don't care about the regular season. It's what matters in the playoffs. Letang led our team in points with 6. He only had 1 goal, though, 5 assists. Carter, 4 goals, 1 assist, 5 points. Malkin, 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points. I didn't know he had that much point totals. Rust, Zucker, Gaudreau, Kapanen, all 3 points. Gaudreau was a +3. And then I didn't put everyone on the board. I did just go down and jump down, as I mentioned, to Crosby and Gensel, who both had 2 points. And Gensel was a -6. So, and then the third key that I had, as I alluded to and I kind of went to, was Jarry. Was not good in this series, and Sullivan also did not pull him. Casey DeSmith was hurt, so I think Sullivan would have put DeSmith in there if he was healthy. Lagasse did not see the ice. Jarry played the entirety of the series, and he had a 3.18 goals against average and a .888 save percentage. That's not good, man. And as I mentioned, kind of in my last PFR, I'm rooting for Vegas now. I don't know, after last night, the Reeves situation, that was not pretty. And they're starting, and their social media went off. That's besides the point. But, I love the Stanley Cup playoffs. I love it when the Penguins are in it, but I also just love watching it when they're not, it's not the Penguins. They're not my team, so I can just sit back and relax. It's not as chaotic. I don't have 7 heart attacks per game, but I'm excited. Colorado is, oh my God, they're so good, but I just hope they don't, blow a tire. McKinnon might be the best player in the league right now. That's a different video, but yeah. Anyways, back to the offseason here. But anyways, the Stanley Cup playoffs are still going on, so we'll have a good amount of time to just watch and enjoy them, because I love watching the Stanley Cup playoffs. Before we get to the actual offseason for the Penguins, I'm sure I'll make videos for Free Agent Frenzy, like trades that happen, the draft. But let's, I'll do a little preview of that right now, because the Penguins don't have a lot to do if they want to keep the same roster, which I don't think they should, even though they had a great roster. I don't think this team should make major blow-ups. Malkin, Gensel, Letang, come on. People are throwing their names around getting traded. There's no way, especially Jay Gensel. If the Penguins trade Jay Gensel, I'm marching down to, Hextall's office and pounding on the door, putting a sign up or something like that. I'm protesting that. It won't happen, which is, I can say that with certainty. Remember Sidney Crosby trade rumors when Darren Dreger said that? Yeah, okay. But as I mentioned, the Penguins offseason this year is going to be as busy as Ron Hextall will make it. It could either be, a very safe offseason. You re-sign some guys, you bring in maybe a couple free agents, you maybe make a minor trade, and you have pretty much the same roster, or you do what I just said. You trade Gensel, you trade Malkin, you trade Letang, which hopefully won't happen. But still, I could see the Penguins making some pretty decent-sized moves this offseason. But again, we don't have Rutherford, so we don't have to worry about them trading, Samuel Poulin and Nathan Legare for freaking, Philip Forsberg. I don't know why he just came to my head. But on the board, I have the Penguins lines, and in blue are the players that played the majority of the regular season and in the playoffs and are re-signed through next season, which is good because look at all the blue I have on the board. Your entirety of your top six is still intact. McCann and Carter are also there, and Tanev is there as well. Your defense is all intact except for Cody Ceci is a UFA. One thing to mention though, John Marino's extension that he signed, not this past offseason, $4.4 million for 6 more years. That's coming up this year that Rutherford signed. We all thought it was a good move, and I still think it is a good move, but the Penguins right now have $1 million under the cap right now with just this, and they still have to re-sign guys, re-sign RFAs, maybe bring in some guys. So is there going to be a trade made on the defensive side? Because right now you have Matheson making about $4 million, Dumoulin making about $4 million, Pettersson making about $4 million, and now Marino making about $4 million. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's $16 million in 4 defensive guys. In the moving out question mark category over here, I have Marcus Pettersson. Even though he still has 4 more years left on his deal, I could see him moving because not only do these guys make $16 million combined, they all have a lot of very similar term. Matheson signed for an eternity. Marino's contract is just now starting, and Pettersson has 4 more years. Those are going to be hard contracts to move. I don't know if you're going to have to do like a cap dump type of move, but Pettersson's not that good for $4 million for the next 4 years, in my opinion. And when you have guys like Mark Friedman, Pierre-Olivier Joseph coming up, and Cody Ceci as a UFA, who you need to re-sign. He had a great year. There's no room for him. So I think Pettersson should go. That's just my own opinion. I don't know who for, but the Penguins need defensive space and salary cap. So, and then in net, we have both Jarry and Smith signed for next year. They're not expiring. Neither of them are. I would have liked to see DeSmith in the playoffs, though, but that's a different story. In your spares, you have Friedman, Poulin, Legare, Ruido, Lafferty, O'Connor, Angelo, Joseph, Bellerive, Riley, Diorio, and Ricola. I'm not going to go over, all those names there, except for I do want to mention Juuso Ricola is making like $1.5 or $1.125 million. He's making over $1 million, and he played 2 games this past season. He's a pending UFA after this season, and I think that's it for him. I think you should move on for him just for that little bitty of teeny widths of cap space, but I don't know. He deserves better than this. He is a good defenseman, but Mike Sullivan's not letting him get a chance, so. And then, in your front office, I have Sullivan, Hextallberg. RFAs, there's a lot. I put everyone on the list here, not just notable ones like I did in my Pittsburgh Sportscastle article. So we'll go over these really quickly because some of these are just like, oh, you're not coming back. First one, Mark Jankowski is an RFA. There's no way in hell we re-sign him. I don't even care. Like, if we re-sign him to league minimum, I'll still be upset about it. He had 2 great games at the beginning of the year, and then he was literally just a player going through the motions. I did not see a thing out of him, and he reminded me of myself when I used to play hockey, just going through the motions. So Radim Zohorna, I definitely think the Penguins will re-sign him. It's not going to cost them much, and the season that he had, absolutely re-sign. And I'll add them down here to these spares once I re-sign them myself. I'm not going to go over exact numbers and things like that, but Radim Zohorna is probably coming back. Same with Kasper Bjornquist, another prospect that's never played a game for the Penguins. I would see Sam Miletic coming back. Don't even know who Jesper Lindgren is. I think he just came over in a trade. And then Emil Larmy, backup goaltender. He did play a game for the Penguins this year. He was like the backup on the bench. He just announced that he's going back to overseas to play in Europe, so he's not coming back. So I added a couple spares there, and then the main 2 RFAs are Zach Aston-Reese and Teddy Blueger. Zach Aston-Reese had a career year. Teddy Blueger has steadily been a great bottom 6 forward for the Penguins. I'm kind of worried about how much money Blueger's going to make because, if you give him like a long-term deal for like $2.5 million, that's great, but I don't know. If you give him a short-term deal at like maybe $3 million or something like that, I don't know if he's worth that much, but like he's good, man. He's so underrated. Beautiful penalty killer, can score clutch goals, can score shorthanded goals. I don't know how much you give a guy like Blueger. That's my first question. I'm going to have a lot of questions for you guys in the comments. First question, what's your offer to Teddy Blueger? As for Zach Aston-Reese, I think he'll get roughly around the same amount. even though he did have a good season, maybe around $1 million. Blueger's a little bit different, though, because I don't know if you want to bridge him. They're both RFAs, so, you have the, arbitration, which is a nasty thing, but still, maybe you can get some, good values out of that. But anyways, I think they both come back. And that'll allow you to put back, we need to make a name for this line. The Aston-Resse Blueger Tanev line. I'm just going to throw Tanev down to the fourth line. Second question for the night. What do we call this line? Because they've been together for about 2-3 years now. We need to start giving them a line. If the Islanders can make the identity line and the Bruins can make the perfection line, we need a line for this line. Tanev, Blueger, Aston-Reese. So second question for you guys there. UFAs. Evan Rodriguez and Frederick Gaudreau, I'm throwing them in the same category because they both, came in at very, minimal deals, had good seasons for what they were, paid for. I'm bringing them both back. I don't see why not, especially Frederick Gaudreau, what he had. He had 3 points. That's more than Sidney Crosby in the postseason, so I'm bringing them both back. As I mentioned before, the Penguins will be stupid if they do not re-sign Cody Ceci. So look at this. This is the same exact thing we entered the playoffs with. I really liked the outlook of this team on paper. Do we go back with it another year? We haven't touched goaltending though, so that's a little bit different. Colton Seavier's gone. Don't see him coming back. Makes $1.2 million to score 5 points or 10 points or whatever the heck he scored. Sorry, man, but Penguins need roster spots and cap space. So see you later. Josh Curry, he can come back if he wants. Same with Kevin Churchman, Maxime Lagacé, Zach Trotman, and then, God, you guys remember Yannick Weber when the Penguins had to sign him at the beginning of the season. So he's probably going to retire. There's no way that the Penguins will need him. They didn't need him even in the second half of the regular season. So I have re-signed people. Again, I'm not putting a number on things, but this is probably what we can expect in terms of re-signing people. I think you re-sign Ceci, Aston-Reese, and Blueger as your main guys there. So this offseason is going to be different, again, because we have a new team. Let's talk about Seattle and who the Penguins could have to give up for that. When is the expansion draft? The expansion draft, I don't know how long before free agency it is. So, if I was the Penguins, I would wait to sign the free agents till afterwards. Like Cody Ceci, I would wait to re-sign him so that the Seattle Kraken wouldn't be tempted to take a player like him, and you wouldn't have to protect another player. That's besides the point. We'll do a full video on Seattle and my picks for the Kraken. But Jason Zucker is my player that I think they should take, or Marcus Pettersson for me. Whoever the Kraken take from the Penguins, I think it's going to be like a player. It's not going to be like, Sam Lafferty. It's not going to be what they did with a bunch of teams, with Vegas did, where they picked Thomas Nosek or something like that, even though he's been a great player. But I'm saying they're not going to pick random AHL depth forwards with 1 year left on their deal so that they can just get rid of them. I think they'll take someone from the Penguins, and that sucks because this is the second time where the Penguins are losing a someone to an expansion team because Marc-Andre Fleury. So let's go over here. For those of you that don't know, expansion draft rules are you get to pick you get to protect 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goalie. There is a separate option where you get to pick 11 forwards and 1 goalie, or 11 skaters and 1 goalie. So let's move over here to what I kind of re-signed, did that things as the depth chart of the Penguins in the offseason, and we'll go through who I would protect for Seattle. For those of you that don't know, you get 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goaltender. Players on their entry-level contracts or in their first 3 years in the league are exempt. So John Marino is exempt. Let's see here. So John Marino is exempt. That's the only person on the Penguins. God, this team's kind of old. But there's also a separate option where you can protect 11 forwards and 1 goalie. No team has ever done that, I don't think. But let's protect these players. Players that have a no movement clause are automatically protected unless they waive it. That includes Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Crystal Tang for the Penguins. I think Jake Gensel as well. Jake Gensel will get protected. So our 7 forwards: Jake Gensel, Sidney Crosby, Brian Rust. There's 3. Malkin 4. Kapanen 5. Carter. Is Carter? Are we protecting Carter? Trade deadline acquisition? I would, after what he just did. 6. And now you got a tough pill to swallow here because you have McCann, Zucker, Blueger, Tanev. Oh, God. The Kraken could pick someone from this forward core. I really hope it's not going to be McCann. This is my picks, so I'm protecting McCann. But I don't think the Penguins will. I think that's going to suck. I think they'll protect Zuck. I think they'll protect Jason Zucker. Either way, you're losing. You're going to have to leave Blueger and Tanev probably unprotected. Maybe McCann as well. You're going to lose, or at least expose, a really good forward. So we'll get to that in a second. Marino is extempt. Letang, CC will not be re-signed hopefully by then. So CC and Marino are done. Pedersen I'm not protecting. So that leaves Dumoulin and Matheson. I loved Mike Matheson. I knew I would like more scoring out of him, as I said, before, because he can move the puck and he can skate. I would like to see more out of him offensively, but other than that, I thought he had a great first season for Pittsburgh. So I keep him. I would keep him, absolutely, for at least one more year. See what he can do. If he has a bad year, then you'll trade him next offseason. That's not what I'm worrying about right now. And then Dumoulin is the most underrated and underappreciated Pittsburgh Penguin, so absolutely protect him. So that leaves Pedersen on the D-core, and I would love for Seattle to take Pedersen, so you don't even have to trade him. You can just get that cap space. I mean, what are you going to get for Pedersen? A 5th-round pick, something like that? He's a good defenseman, but, I don't know. He's making too much money. And then in net, third question, whatever question is I'm on right now. Who do you protect in net? You protect Tristan Jarry after what he just did to you? Casey DeSmith is a hell of a backup. There are a lot of other good goaltenders that Seattle could pick. So they get a starter out of that, and then they come to Pittsburgh, and they get a pretty damn good backup in Casey DeSmith. Casey DeSmith would suck to lose for the Penguins after what just happened in the playoffs. What do you do? Do you protect Jarry after what he just did? Again, these are my picks. I'm protecting DeSmith. But the Penguins are probably going to protect Jarry, which is stupid, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't want Jarry to leave. I want him to bounce back, obviously, but kind of just want to put him in timeout until next season. So there you have it for my Seattle picks. And that leaves Teddy Blueger, Zach Aston-Resse, Brandon Tanev, Evan Rodriguez, and Frederick Gaudreau will be UFAs, so ignore them. Zucker, Pedersen, and Jarry. Good players there to pick from. I'm going to assume that I'm going to assume that Seattle has not been watching Penguins games and just immediately look at the roster and be like, they're not protecting Jason Zucker, and they'll take him. Which leaves the Penguins without, a top 6 forward, but based off of the season he just had, I don't think he's a top 6 forward anymore. And Zucker's going to Seattle. That's my Seattle pick right now. So that frees up $5.5 million in cap space. And then, I'll switch up the lines here real quick. So there's my makeshift lines for now. And again, it's very similar to last season. So let's talk about free agency. Even kind of in the trade market, I have no idea what the trade market's going to look like this offseason, especially with Seattle coming in. But one player that I do want to mention, though, he's not on the board, I saw it going around Twitter, is that the Oilers may buy out James Neal, who has struggled, especially ever since he left Pittsburgh. Well, not since he left Pittsburgh. He did good in Nashville. And a little bit in Vegas. He's been on a lot of teams, hasn't he? There's a rumor that James Neal could be bought out. Would you bring him back? Fourth question, whatever question I'm on right now. Do you bring James Neal back on a league minimum or close to a league minimum deal? I would do it. Not even to see what he can do on the ice, just to the fact it would make Evgeny Malkin happy. Because just even off the ice, those guys were great friends. They loved each other. James Neal's kind of a weird personality. He bashed Phil Kessel after he won Stanley Cup, so I didn't really like him for a good period of time there. He also, played against the Penguins in 2017 final. But I would love it. Former 40-goal scorer with the Penguins. He's not going to score that again. He's not going to. Even if the Penguins get, Calgary or Edmonton, James Neal, I still don't think it's, worth that much of a risk because this is assuming that he gets bought out. Do not take his $4 million or whatever it is right now. But just wanted to bring that up real quick because Rodriguez is currently who I have on the second line left wing right there. James Neal, switch him out. Absolutely. So, as I did a whole video on, I'm not even going to go in depth in this because it was a crazy idea. I'm still on board with it. Screw it. Sue me. Alex Ovechkin should totally sign a 1-year deal in Pittsburgh and win a Stanley Cup, but that's a separate video that I did. You have to at least consider it, just briefly. I know it's probably 1 in a million, but call him at least once. You never know. And what do you play hockey for? You play it to win the Stanley Cup. And if you have Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, and Jeff Carter on the same team, are you kidding me? Anyways, Tuukka Rask, kind of the same thing. Don't see it happening, but you have to at least consider it. He's probably inching towards retirement. Could you imagine Tuukka Rask, Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby, Jeff Carter, and Chris Letang all on the same team? He is a beast in the playoffs, and he's one of the most underrated goaltenders, I think, ever. Really, he's been incredible. I hate the Bruins, but if they win it this year, it's because of Rask, and I can say that after one round already in one game against the Islanders. Those two, and kind of this one as well. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, $6 million. He can play winger as well. Coming out of Edmonton, does he want to leave Edmonton? Because a lot of people, if I was in Edmonton, I would want to leave. Could you see him being like a good depth forward add for the Penguins? Again, those three names that I have at the top there is simply names that I would just briefly consider. Maybe you pull something spectacular off, but probably not. Towards the bottom here, I have goaltenders because that's really what the Penguins need to add this offseason. It's already been reported that the Penguins are going to look at a goalie this offseason, whether that be a trade or in free agency. The goaltending market isn't, insane like it was last year, but I do think the Penguins need someone at least to challenge Tristan Jarry. I think they need a 1A, 1B type situation so that you can challenge Tristan Jarry and make him even better. I don't want to compare it to bringing in Thomas Vokoun and getting Fleury to be better, because that didn't really work out. But that's kind of what the Penguins need to experiment with. 4 names on the screen right now, or on the board right now, not on the screen. Well, on your screen, Frederik Andersen, $5 million out of Toronto. Good chance he's not re-signing there, especially with Jack Campbell. This is going to be kind of, a pretty big name to get, especially because the Toronto media has hyped him up so much. He's not really that good of a goaltender. He's like a B, C average goaltender, in my opinion. But you put him together with Jarry, they can battle it out. I don't know how much money Anderson would want, though, which is probably the biggest problem with that. He's also, I think he's over 30. I wouldn't like it. He is just an option, though, as well. Peter Mrazek, he's been the name that has been tossed around the most. He, again, is on the older side of things. He's making 3.15, and I like that, but he's on Carolina right now. I know he's not the starter, but, I wouldn't want to leave Carolina with what they're doing right now. They have a good chance of maybe even, winning the Stanley Cup this year. And Mrazek has been the best in his entire career with the Hurricanes. Why would you want to leave? How much money will he make? I like it on paper. If I was playing EA Sports NHL, I would totally do this. But, this is real life, guys. Mrazek sounds good. Logistically, could it happen? I don't think so. I think he's staying in Carolina. Jonathan Bernier, kind of the same thing. Coming out of Detroit, has not played, good because he's been on Detroit. But again, older goaltender, veteran. He would be a lot cheaper. He made $3 million this year, but he would make much less if he were to come to Pittsburgh. But the one name that sticks out to me the most, and who I think the Penguins should pursue as a 1A, 1B type situation for a goaltender, is Linus Ullmark out of Buffalo, who I don't think has ever played on a good team. I think where did he play? He played with the Predators, I think, and then he came to the Sabres, which poor Sabres goaltenders. Ryan Miller, Robin Lehner, those are 2 great examples of goaltenders that were great, but they played for the Sabres, and then they moved on and had, good things to come after it. Especially Lehner. Well, not after last night against the Avalanche, where they scored 7 goals. He only did make $2.6 million. He could get him for a pretty decent, cheap contract. You would have to move out some cap, though, because he is only, I think, 26 or 27, so he's still youngish. And I think that would be a perfect add for the Penguins in terms of, competing with each other. And unlike Mrazek, he definitely wants to leave Buffalo. I don't think there's one person that wants to be in Buffalo right now. So there's my offseason targets. I'm not putting any trades on the board or anything like that, but just overall, I'll say it again. This offseason will be as busy as Ron Hextall wants it to make. You could just play it safe and just have what I have on the board right now. Same exact roster, almost identical. But you have to bring up what's going to happen next offseason, which I haven't even touched on yet. The Penguins, next offseason, not this offseason, but next offseason, will have pending unrestricted and restricted free agents by the name of Brian Rust, Kasperi Kapanen, Evgeny Malkin, Jared McCann, Jeff Carter. However long, if they sign a one-year deal, then Rodriguez, Gaudreau, and Aston-Reese and Blueger also, but that's kind of, assuming things. Chris Letang will be a UFA. Depends on how long Ceci signs. And then Casey DeSmith as well. That's like half, almost all of the roster. And not only that, but they're good players and the core of the Penguins. Most importantly, Chris Letang and Evgeny Malkin will be unrestricted free agents, not this offseason, but next offseason. Do you trade Malkin and Letang at the deadline? No. But do you do everything in your power to win a Stanley Cup with them on potentially one of their last contracts? They'll probably re-sign in Pittsburgh. They're probably not going anywhere. But still, they're going to cost, pretty good, decent amount of money. I don't think they're going to get necessarily raises, especially Malkin. I hope he goes down a little bit more. That would make things a lot easier. But still, Carter's not coming back. I would be surprised if Carter comes back. I would, probably see him retiring. And then you have guys like McCann and Kapanen and Rust. And even, if DeSmith, who could get some pay raises, especially Brian Rust, who's only making $3.5 million. Guys, I am not excited for next offseason. This offseason, as I mentioned, very calm if you don't plan on doing anything. But you have to look at the future of this team. That is why I say, fuck it. Bring in Alex Ovechkin, Tuukka Rask, Taylor Hall. Do whatever you can to win one last cup. I milk the shit out of the Crosby and Malkin core because this is probably it next season. Next season is probably it. This team, I'm very disappointed that this team didn't even get past the first round this year, but you got one more shot. Next season's PFRs will be, I'll be dialed in because I really do think that this. I know we say this a lot, but especially with the contracts expiring and players, inching towards retirement, this is probably this is probably the last chance the Penguins have at winning a Stanley Cup. Really, and I mean that wholeheartedly, not ever, but like with this core. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, 33 by the time next season. Crosby will be 34. Letang will be 35, 34. Malkin will be 34, maybe 35. I don't know when his birthday is. This team's old. This team's core is old. They have young players. They have Joseph. They have Marino. They have Gensel. They have Rust. Jarry's even, younger. But the core, which is what takes you far in the postseason, needs to step up. And because they're aging. One more cup. That's all I'm rooting for. This has probably been one of the longest videos I've ever recorded. And this is just a one take. This is just my thoughts on the Penguins right now because, again, this offseason could be quiet. Next offseason, I am absolutely terrified of. If the Penguins lose in the first round next season, I am going to be very upset because, it depends on what they do. If I'm Ron Hextall right now, I look at the smartest and cheapest options to make this team better. But I'm going to go back on my word here. I would not be opposed for him for trading a first-round pick, Samuel Pula, Nathan Legare, whoever it may be, to get this team one more cup. It's worth it. A Stanley Cup is much more important than a couple good prospects and draft picks, in my opinion. But you got to go one way. You cannot dabble in the middle. You cannot be like Jim Rutherford and be like, I want to, stockpile some picks, but also I want to trade everyone. One way or another. And I think the one way is to freaking go after Ovechkin in free agency. Go after anything that can make this team better. Make a big move and get this team another Stanley Cup. I'm going to, wrap this up here, but I am terrified about next offseason. This offseason should be good. I have a bunch of videos in the pipeline. I'm going to do a controversial video here, so a series of videos. It's simple. I'm going to be doing my top 10 players in the league, centers in the league, wingers in the league. You guys aren't going to like those because I have controversial opinions, but thank you all for watching. I don't even know if I can consider this a Penguins fan reaction, but still, it's me reacting to the Penguins, so yes, I will. We had a lot of success this year. I do appreciate everything you guys have done for me. I don't really appreciate the way that this season ended because I would have loved to do these, videos into the playoffs, but it is what it is. None of you guys play for the Pittsburgh Penguins as far as I can know, so I'm not mad at you guys, but disappointed the way the season ended, to say the least. Islanders were a good team. Jarry cost us. Going into the next season, the Penguins need at least a new goaltender. You can keep Jarry, but, get a new goaltender as well. And I say fuck it and go all in. Go all in towards the Stanley Cup. Do whatever you can.